The shooting in Parkland, Florida, was a tragedy, and ensuing conversation regarding gun control has waged on since the shooting. While many blame the NRA, others have pointed to the non-action by the local law enforcement as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Officers at the school were armed and refused to engage the shooter. LAW enforcement was called to the boy's house over 30 times. There is accountability to go all around. However, the county sheriff refuses to accept responsibility and instead chooses to push the blame elsewhere. But after some extensive research, it was found that in reality, he has a much shadier past than anyone realized. The Last Refuge reported, a few points need to be emphasized for those unfamiliar with the Broward County system. First, with revelations of frequent LEO contact and calls from people warning about school shooter Nicholas Cruz, there's a common narrative mistakenly being pushed by mainstream media. The Broward County Sheriff's Office, BSO, didn't miss warning signs or make mistakes in not writing up reports. The sheriff's office did exactly what their internal policies, procedures and official training required them to do. They intentionally ignored the signs and intentionally didn't generate documents. Example, Miami Herald, in November, a tipster called BSO to say Cruz could be a school shooter in the making, but deputies did not write up a report on that warning. It came just weeks after a relative called urging BSO to seize his weapons. TWO years ago, according to a newly released timeline of interactions with Cruz's family, a deputy investigated a report that Cruz planned to shoot up the school, intelligence that was forwarded to the school's resource officer, with no apparent result. Read more. It is important to understand the policy here. Broward County Law Enforcement, Sheriff Israel, in conjunction with Broward County school officials, Superintendent Runcie and school board, have a standing policy to ignore any criminal engagement with high school students. When the police are hiding current, actual and ongoing unlawful conduct as a matter of standard procedure on a regular basis, what do we expect the police would do with reports of potential unlawful conduct? Of course they would ignore them. This is horrific. In November, a tipster called BSO to say Cruz could be a school shooter in the making, but deputies did not write up a report on that warning. It came just weeks after a relative called urging BSO to seize his weapons. This is not a mistake on their part. The doing nothing is part of the standard practice. Secondly, the 27-minute tape delay in the CCTV system is not an accident, flaw or mistake. It is entirely by design. As a standard Broward and Miami-Dade practice, when school law enforcement need to cover up or hide behavior, they need time, when that behavior happens, to delete the evidence trail. As such, the school policy as carried out in practice is more efficient, with a 30-minute tape delay affording the school officer enough time to deal with the situation, then erase the possibility of a recording of the unlawful activity surfacing. Building in a 30-minute delay on the CCTV system was one of those pesky add-on items that happened a few years ago when the school and law enforcement officials established the policy of intentionally not arresting students. With modern technology, it's tough to hide criminal behavior, especially the violent stuff, when it is being recorded. Ergo, the tape delay was the best practice workaround. Lastly, when the county education policy is intentionally constructed to ignore criminal behavior in schools, the sheriff and school superintendent cannot rely on law and order-minded school police officers to carry out the heavily nuanced policy. The county officials need the people closest to the work, the officers, to be able to think quickly on their feet to safeguard their prized district-wide statistics. In 2013, Broward announced broad changes designed to mitigate the use of harsh punishments for minor misbehavior at the beginning of this school year. While other districts have amended their discipline codes, prohibited arrests in some circumstances, and developed alternatives to suspension, Broward was able to do all these things at once with the cooperation of a group that included a member of the local NAACP, a school board member, a public defender, a local sheriff, a state prosecutor, and several others. In early November, the Miami Herald reported that suspensions were already down 40% and arrests were down 66%. A Broward County SRO must carry a political hat and be able to intercept behavior, modify his or her action based on a specific policy need, falsify documents, hide evidence, manipulate records, and engage inside the system with an understanding of the unwritten goals. Broward County School law enforcement are given political instructions and carrying out political objectives. They are not given law enforcement instructions. The school officers are the primary foot soldiers carrying out county political policy. Physical security of school students is not their role, they don't have time for that. The Broward County SRO is in place to protect the school system policy and ensure students are not arrested for criminal conduct. If you begin reviewing the downstream consequences with a correct understanding of the originating policy objectives, then everything begins to make sense. Again, from the Miami Herald, on 9.30, an unidentified caller from Massachusetts called to say Cruz was collecting guns and knives. The caller said Cruz will kill himself one day and believes he could be a school shooter in the making. BSO, however, never even wrote a report on the tip. Internal affairs detectives are now trying to figure out what happened. Deputies Edward Eason and Gunter Striges are on restricted duty while detectives examine their handling of the two potential school shooter tips. After the shooting, the tipster was re-interviewed and said BSO told him to report Cruz to the Palm Beach sheriffs, as the teen was then living in the neighboring county. Of course, the Broward County Sheriff's Office didn't write a report. Writing a report would not be in line with the goals of hiding student criminal behavior. Additionally, it seems odd to see the Miami Herald reporting on Nikolas Cruz in 2018, when the same editorial staff conspicuously avoided any aspects of Trayvon Martin's student criminal behavior in 2012 and 2013. I wonder why there's such a difference now. School police officer Scott Peterson is mentioned as part of a 2016 Social Services Agency investigation into Nikolas Cruz, the 19-year-old identified by police as the gunman. According to a Florida Department of Children and Families report detailing that investigation, Peterson was approached by investigators and refused to share any information regarding an incident that took place with the teenager. That same year, the sheriff's office revealed Thursday it was told about third-hand information from a neighbor's son suggesting that Cruz planned to shoot up the school, although the specific school was not listed. The sheriff's office said a deputy contacted the caller, determined that Cruz had knives and a BB gun, and sent the information to the school resource officer, presumably Peterson. It is unclear whether he investigated. Sheriff Scott Israel was accused in June 2016 of having employees attend campaign events on his behalf at taxpayers' expense. Resign Sheriff Israel pic. Twitter.com 2Z6XGWGRHV. Josh Kaplan, at Josh Kaplan, February 24, 2018. A Sun-Sentinel investigation the same year found that the sheriff had routinely handed out taxpayer-funded jobs to political supporters. The sheriff's response at the time: "Lions don't care about the opinions of sheep." Resign Sheriff Israel https://t.co/p/b/nsf0xIIN. Josh Kaplan, at Josh Kaplan, February 24, 2018. This shooting was a failure on the part of the local law enforcement. It was because of the sheriff's internal policies that Cruz was able to go free and rampage his old ethereal. There are no ifs, ands or buts about it. The sheriff had changed internal policies years prior to crack down and decrease student arrests in an attempt to get more money from the federal government. Because the less kids that enter the juvenile criminal system, the more money they received. All this meant was that serious and illegal behavior went unreported and ignored for years and years. This is the result. 17 people are dead and their futures are gone because of the sheriff's need to bring in more money to his police department from the federal government. The sheriff's actions were especially despicable given how awful he treated the spokeswoman at the National Rifle Association at the CNN town hall regarding the issue. He completely shifted the blame on firearms when he knew full well that his police station and his policies were completely inept.